All right. So you said you want to talk about some financial literacy, huh?
Financial literacy, yeah, I can definitely talk about that.
So all right.
There,
So
like I said, there are all sorts of stuff kind of floating, sorts of things floating around in my head. One of the most common things is financial literacy,
okay.
uh, or things that kind of go in that arena. But the main thing, I guess, I'm not sure if you wanted to talk a little bit about the GameStop situation, if that's something that you're interested in, or if
Are
that's
are you interested in it?
well, I'm interested in it in terms of the sort of broader implications of what it is.
So
And
go.
frankly speaking, I don't really know all the details,
Well, yeah. There's a lot of minutia. Yeah.
but it does lead me to think about some of the things that do kind of irritate me about the financial system, like uh, in broad strokes, I guess.
Okay.
That's it's something that's always bugged me my entire life.
And that is what?
So the thing that has bugged me most of my life is that, like, I studied economics when I was in college. Actually, it's my major, and uh, the fundamental principle of economics is to find the appropriate value of things. But the problem is that's not what happens ever. Like, the goal of economics in theory is to just find the accurate value for things, the accurate slash precise, accurate and precise values for things. But what it has become is the exploitation of inefficiencies, right? So basically, in theory, we should be able to kind of pay for everything should have like a fair value, given the work that you put in, given the resources that it
Yeah.
put in, and all that stuff, right? The theory of economics is that everything should go at a fair price. But the problem is there are small inefficiencies, right? In terms of, again, like maybe if something's far away,
Yeah.
or, depending on standards of living, and there are all different things, different factors that sort of affect prices. But it's supposed to be, those variations are supposed to be essentially brought to zero. But I find that, but basically the reality is modern economics is the exploitation of those gaps. It's kind of like, it's basically like that movie Office Space. Have you seen Office Space?
Of course. Of course.
So, so the fundamental is like, in that movie, the idea is they create an algorithm, or they create a computer program that steals fractions of a cent.
Yeah.
And in economics, those fractions of a cent should be nothing, should technically be zero, right? But they are rounded up. The theory for their program is they take those fractions of a cent, and they just collect those fractions of a cent, right?
Yeah.
And that's sort of exploiting money that does not exist. That principle is, I feel like, the majority of economic practice.
Oh gosh.
The whole
Yeah.
system is built on finding these sorts of these things that technically don't exist, and then just pouring them into your accounts.
Yeah.
So when you look at, like, one basic example is, if you buy anything in, so for example, you buy a video game in India, and you buy a video game in the United States, the prices are not the same. Even though the product is identical,
Yeah.
the distribution is identical, they're priced differently, right? And so this, or not even, like, this is true for all software, really. So this is kind of it's sort of a weird deal, because there are businesses that are built on essentially stealing, not stealing, yeah. So stealing codes for software from other countries, where they are priced lower
Yep.
specifically as a way to make things fairer, or
Or
to
just have
calibrate
better sales,
the local
better
economy.
sales. Yeah.
Or yeah, but to calibrate for the local economy, right?
Yeah.
This local
Yeah.
standard of living or whatnot. But they end up buying those things for cheaper, then selling them in a market where they're not supposed to, right? So it'll be like, okay, so if Microsoft Windows costs whatever, like $150 in the US, then and it costs, we'll say $50 in India, they'll get like a $50 code from India, and then they'll repackage it and then sell it in the US for like $100,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's the thing. It's like, oh, they'll say, oh, it's a legal code, it's a legal, you know, it's
Well,
a legal
but
Microsoft
oh,
code. But right, software is software. But
oh, but that, I mean, by definition, that's business, is it not? Like, I mean, if I can walk to the farm with a basket and I can pick a basket full of apples for $100, or I can walk to the store and buy 3 apples for $3, right?
right.
So
But
there's always
that's what
going
I'm
to be
saying.
someone. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
But that's what I'm saying. So like so again, in theory, that's how it's supposed to work. That again, when you take it to the logical conclusion, if there is sort of fair exchange, then ultimately you're going to find equilibrium where
Hear,
the price of apples ends up changing.
yeah,
Like
I
the
hear a butt
global
coming.
price of apples will change, or the
I hear a butt
local
coming.
price
Yeah.
of apples will change. The problem is you're looking at two closed systems, right?
Okay.
It's kind of like, because you know ultimately you have the original vendor, which is Microsoft, is has a different market, right? So actually you're making Microsoft compete against itself, right? In like that's where it is. Like, so yeah, and again, it's one of those inefficiencies, and you're saying you could exploit it. A business person should exploit those sorts of inefficiencies. But
Well, there. I mean, you could also ask, why are they charging different price points in different countries? Because
yeah,
Microsoft is
absolutely.
certainly welcome to charge the India price all the way around the globe. They can
Sure.
certainly do that.
Right.
So
They could.
yeah.
I mean, that's what I think is miraculous, or one of the interesting, not miraculous, but one of the interesting
Mm.
sort of uh, observations you can make about Steam. The way that they sell software on Steam is the limiting factor with Steam is
Steam,
time. Do you know
Steam.
what Steam is?
I do not.
So Steam is a platform for selling PC games. It's kind of like they have almost a monopoly, effectively, on selling PC games.
Okay.
So, and the way that their system works is they have a launcher, and that launcher basically allows you to play all PC games. And that launcher also connects to their store. And they have all these contracts with all these different PC game developers. And anytime you want to play a game, it opens on Steam. So many people are using Steam, so they see the products there and they'll buy it off of Steam. So what happens with Steam is that you can buy games on Steam new. You can basically buy almost all games that have ever existed. But over time, you'll see that those games will change radically in price, to the
Yeah.
point where you're like, games that I love, like from when I was a kid, I can still buy them on Steam for like $1.
Oh, like
or
what?
or
Franken? What are you talking
like
about? Like
super cheap. Like,
Doom 3D and Franken?
yeah,
Was
like
it?
just
Yeah.
like stuff like from forever. And they have sales all the time. A lot of times they're offering sales and make the games even cheaper and cheaper. So you can pick up games so often just for like fractions of
Yeah.
what they were charged originally, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a fine model. Like, I think that's the thing I would love for. I feel like that is a very, very original
Yeah.
idea, for
Yeah.
original economics idea for fair market or for free market. That to me is the epitome of that, where ultimately everyone just sort of pays, and you know, like if you want to buy it on day one, 60
That's right.
bucks.
That's right. That's
Sure.
right.
Yeah. If I want to play it right now, 60
Yeah.
bucks, bang. If I want to play it 6 months from now, if I can wait, I'll pay 50%. If I want to wait specifically for a sale, I'll get it for 60%, right? 60% off. And then if I can wait like 7 years and I don't mind playing a 7-year-old game, I'll buy it for $1,
Yeah.
right? Like that to me is like, cool. That's a great system. That works perfectly. As
Well,
opposed to,
as opposed to.
well, so as opposed to two other systems, which is like the Microsoft system,
Oh God.
like with where it's kind of like
Like,
the
yeah.
whales and the freebies, right? So the people basically the handful or the small percentage of people that can be charged a huge amount will subsidize the fact that you're providing it for a very low price for other people.
Yeah.
And so that's basically the India Microsoft model, or the really almost a lot of programs are like that. A lot of freeware is that way, where you're just kind of like you
Yeah.
charge like a incredible premium. Most software, I think, and most web services work that way, where it's like you have your whales, and they're the ones that provide the brunt of your
Well,
of revenue, and then everyone else you get kind of allow them to have it for a low price or almost for free, effectively. That's one model, and then like the other model is sort of subscription, where you don't get to own anything. You just have to pay forever
yeah.
for the
Oh yeah.
use
Yeah.
of whatever.
I'm quite familiar with Microsoft's subscription system.
Right. And so yeah, so actually
Yeah.
Microsoft offers both, right? Because they have
Well,
you
yeah.
know, you
You
have,
could get the old. You could own the version,
right.
but either way, they're it's extremely limiting about how many computers you can put it on. You have to log in every so often to make sure it's you and all. Yeah. Yeah. I
Right,
get you.
right.
But
And so it's like,
I
you
would
got
say that one of the merits of the free market is that if you don't get it right, or if you start slipping, cue Apple, like if you get caught slipping, someone's going to be right behind you, because I mean, especially now where a lot of the money is in, I guess, new technologies with software. Like if you're able to make a computer do something that a lot of people want, i.e. Zoom, like you could give the technology away or the software away, or you could have a very, cost competitive strategy and just get people using it to the point where they need it. And you win simply by, hey guys, I got these people here. You want a piece of this action? I can give you people that are living in this area that have this, or I could give you people that are using software like this. And if you want to compete or build something to complement it, by all means, as opposed to what happens to companies like Microsoft, where you just have this insane revenue stream every month or every whatever so often. And how are you getting pushed to innovate? Where's the push for innovation at Microsoft when they know that everyone who's buying a non-Mac has to use their software? So how are you going to get pushed to be better? Like the push comes from internal, and it's hard to do that for an sustained amount of time.
Well, but here's the thing. So ultimately, there is nothing wrong with it. So again, in theory, there's nothing wrong with a healthy sort of capitalist system, right? Where you have competition, and then the best ideas hopefully will win out. Basically, the people will pay for quality,
Yeah.
and then over time, if you're able to deliver it at whatever cost, and maybe if you become too overburdened with expenses or whatever costs, or
Yeah.
if some new innovation, someone else comes with an innovation that cuts, or allows for them to provide a service for much cheaper, or
Yeah.
some other way, sure, then there's this sort of give and take. But where it becomes more difficult is, or where it gets a little sketchy, is when something like Amazon comes along,
Yeah.
right? Where Amazon, where it gets to a point where they have this marketplace, and they're like, okay, everyone can sell whatever you want on our marketplace, but then they steal all of the data, and they're saying like, okay, these mops
Yeah.
are selling really well.
Mm-hmm.
So you know what we can do? Let's make an Amazon mop that's exactly like this mop. And then we're going to edge out this actual person, this actual business. And again, there's nothing wrong with it. They're just like, hey.
That actually kind of leads me to one of the things that I lament about just being American is that as Americans, we don't really have a set defined culture. So, our culture kind of evolves. And the reason I say that is because in a lot of countries, like when Amazon goes stomping in, like, hey, we're Amazon, if you don't do it the right way, you can't sell in that country. Like a good example is Walmart tried to establish a beachhead here and they couldn't do it. Like there's a certain way that the marketplaces work around the world with these countries that have cultures. So like it's not every culture is not just like how much money can we make, how much money can we make. It's just like really that's kind of mostly, I don't know if it's America more than anyone else, but that is America. How much money can we make? And people don't care about who they squash. But like you can see the biggest businessman in Tokyo, he has a favorite little ramen shop. He's going to go and spend 800 yen for that ramen, and that shop stays there for that reason. And that kind of connection, we don't have anything like that in America. It's so.
Well,
go ahead.
See, that's the thing. But it's funny that you say that because that is a characteristic that is American culture. Like that is American culture.
Yes.
In two respects, right? It's number one, it is the best idea wins out sort of mentality, where it's like we can do it better, but it's also the bravado of just throwing it in your face. Like I'm gonna storm into China and go, actually, this is the best way. So just do it our way, like without any thought to a system or like something else. It's just like, no, like let's just do it,
Yeah.
And that is America. Like that is, and what's interesting is, growing up in the States, you take that for granted, or at least I took it for granted a lot. And then when, moving to Asia and going around, you see that is not the way around the world,
not.
right?
No, it's not.
And when and I think those are great illustrations. Like when you talk about Walmart or Google or, a lot of these, fast food chains or whatever, trying to break into China, break into Korea, trying to break into Japan.
A great example is Uber. Like you see what Uber has basically, they have basically crushed the taxi industry. And like, you, like that's a really good job in a lot of countries, right? So they're not going to allow just regular people with cars to just come in and just crush a whole industry like America allows in a year or two. So you see Uber comes here, and first of all, you can't drive Uber because they got taxes everywhere here. But it's like Uber taxi comes out, and then almost a week later, I see taxis driving around with Japan Taxi. I see Uber Eats, and then almost a month later, I see like the Uber Eats competitor. And the reason why that works is because, simply put, a lot of people in other cultures buy their own culture. So if you have Amazon and you have Rakuten, like some people just simply are going to go on Rakuten and buy it because it's a Japanese company. And we're in America, we're just looking for the lowest price.
But here's the thing. What you're describing, like, I think when you say America has no culture, I think what you're saying is that America doesn't have any community.
There you go.
Because America has a culture. It's a culture of individuals.
Yes.
Of individualism wins out.
Yes.
So yeah, like, look, I'm Joe, I'm Joe Uber, or I'm Joe, just a random driver, and I can compete with this community of taxi drivers, you know? Like that's American culture. It's like the one, it's sort of breaking communities down, frankly.
Oh, it is. It absolutely is.
The culture of America is breaking communities down.
Absolutely
where it's
is.
like, Where it's like,
Absolutely.
you know what? You're the establishment. Communities are considered sort of the establishment, right? So it's just like, no, I'm going to come in and I'm going to do it better. Boom. And like it's the the elevation of the one. That is American culture.
Well,
Whereas, yeah, like you said,
well,
it's
they,
much harder to do that
but
in
it's
Asia.
been that way. I mean, since what, the end of World War II, when
Sure.
you went from people cooking dinners to TV dinners, and then you went from TV dinners to McDonald's popping up everywhere, and you went from that to, I don't know where you want to go with it, like Blockbuster. How about this? How about this? I don't know if you. Sometimes I look at old pictures of myself in elementary school.
Mhm.
Like, we didn't wear any brands. Like I look at like my clothes in elementary school. We didn't wear brands. Like, we just wore regular shirts. And
Mm.
then like you get into the 90s, and then they take the same shirt and they iron something on it with some glue on the back, and they say this is premium price. And then all of a sudden, like, people who, I mean, I remember my mom sewed items for me to wear to school. And like that whole industry of people knowing how to make clothes and repair clothes, it disappears. And clothes are disposable, and you want the clothing with the item on your thing because you're a special individual. And it's yeah, it's one of the things I lament about.
Well, so
Yeah.
again, I don't know. Like, so here's the problem that I have in my life in general, is that it's hard for me to understand what are things that have changed and what are things that I just was not aware of at the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, for example, it's possible that, like, when I was a kid, the first thing I want to say is that, like, when I was younger, it wasn't even a matter of like no brands. Like, we just wore like dirty old, like just
Yeah.
random
Yep.
stuff. Like
Yep.
when I was a kid, like torn up stuff, old stuff, faded
Yep.
stuff, just like all sorts of garbage. And and then, like, at a certain point in time, you know, it like, and again, this is just in my life, like when I moving to Korea, for example, like people just wear new things. Like people will just get rid of old stuff. Like they don't even have like, I feel like people don't even wear old things out here.
Wow.
But like, I don't know if that's an economic thing. Like if I was just, we were just poor, or if if that's been a shift towards brand awareness or appearance awareness or whatever, or if it's a young old thing where like kids, it used to be like kids, no one cared about kids clothes, but then like Baby Gap came out and Baby, all this other stuff came out, and then suddenly brands became an issue
Yeah.
with children. I don't know. Like, so
Well, I, to be honest with you, I would, if I were to say that there were if you had buckets, and you say which bucket contribute to that more than anything, it just, when you talk about the corporate culture and wanting to have
oh
bigger
yeah,
profits, the way that kids have been advertised to, like, imagine, like, first of all, there is a part of our lives where we didn't have cable. Like,
sure.
we had three, four, five, six channels. Commercials came on, and it was just a very small group of really big companies that could, get into the commercial game. But then you have cable, and then you have this new group of people that can start, you know, throwing ads out. But then now you have 500 channels, and kids don't even watch TV because they have phones which are throwing ads at them, and they're getting bombarded with buy this, buy this, buy this. So, I mean, of course, their view of what's cool, they're getting hundreds of images a day. Buy this. This is cool, and even inside of television shows, they're getting it right with product placement. So it's just,
Right. Well,
it's like
well, that's the thing.
it's what we were
But
talking about earlier on steroids.
but that but like you said, that has always existed. That has always, at least in my lifetime, that's always existed. Like the fact of the matter is, um, back in the day, I didn't know it at the time, but Transformers was my favorite cartoon growing up. That was just a commercial for toys. Like I had no idea. But basically, they had these Japanese toys, or I don't even know if they were Japanese, honestly. But there were these toys, and they're just like, you know what? Let's just market these to kids. Like I used to think that that was like this novel thing that like, oh,
Yeah.
targeting children for advertising and then having these lifetime, kids lifetime, sort of uh, this connection to a brand.
Yeah.
But no, this always it's existed since I was a kid because Transformers, GI Joe, uh, all those cartoons when I was a kid, I didn't realize that wasn't just kids entertainment. It was they were literally
Yeah.
commercials for
Well,
products.
but you were speaking about the inefficiencies earlier, and
Right.
this is what happened to that market. So remember, like when we bought Transformers and GI Joes, they were essentially collector's items. Like you could pick up a Transformer and it had metal in it. It had metal. There screws in it. Like
Yeah.
it was a sturdy toy that was built to last because it was made. Well, I think then it was made in Hong Kong. I can't remember, but they were made quality made, so you could have the toy for a very long time and it had value. They have
The
value
best
now,
ones are, I think
but
the best ones are made in Taiwan. I want to say the
yeah.
best
So,
quality ones were made in Taiwan. The
but
crappy
look
ones
at
were made in Macau.
but but look at what happens now, right? Now they're just basically plastic molds that break after and so the premium is in you want the toy to break so that they buy it again. So how can we make the toy cheaper? Where can we make it cheaper? How can we do all of this and keep it at the same price point? And that's, you talked about the inefficiencies. That's where it's gone. Not making
Well,
better toys that we can charge more for, but
but this is
yeah,
that's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, like this isn't even that's not even about inefficiencies. This is what happens when your goal is not to build a quality product. It's to make money.
that's right.
So that's where planned obsolescence comes in, and that's especially true in technology, where they give you things like you said that only will last 2 to 3 years because because they explicitly want you to buy something again.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the problem, is that you have these kinds of sort of shady practices, which go toward, because again, going back to this idea of economics, it's the practice of economics only exists because you're trying to evaluate trade, right? So it's like, how can I exchange, how can I live if I am a farmer and I only have chickens and I want to, and you have someone who only is able to do some sort of labor, right? Like
Yeah.
maybe as a doctor. Okay, so how can you equate chickens with healthcare? Okay, it's like, okay, well, I don't know, how many chickens does it take to
Yeah.
fix my broken arm? Like, and then there's that system where you create a value system where you have a medium to kind of figure out, the different values, right? but the problem is, it's like we've gone off the rails with it in time, because now
Well,
it's its own entity, right?
I
Because
would say that, but I would say that in as an answer to this kind of capitalism as it is, one of the ways to combat this is to just have a more educated consumer. If a consumer cannot discern quality, like this is worth more than this one, and these are the reasons why. Like a great number of people cannot understand, like you can go to China and you can get a pair of knockoff Jordans for $25. Or you can get the actual Jordans that are $200. And the difference between those is like a discernible signal or symbol being a certain way. And if you are someone who cares about that symbol being a little bit off, then you have $175 that someone's willing to take from you. But if you don't care and your shoes look 95% like Jordans, you get the Jordan knockoffs, you walk around, hey, I'm cool with it. What's the problem? But the praying comes from people who have insecurities or they're not educated, and those are the people that get got. Like if young
so
people understood that the difference between value and or value as in quality as opposed to value as in how people around them see a product, they will spend much differently.
Right. But here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. Again, in theory, I agree with everything that you're saying. But the problem is, it's not a because it works on both sides. So for example, if I'm a mighty corporation, I'm going to make sure that the message is buy the real Jordans.
Yeah.
You don't even care about the quality. Doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is the real Jordans, right? Like, think about it. Look at phones. This is the conversation that I have more than anything. Like, when it comes to phones, the conversation that I have most commonly is your phone has the capacity to do everything. Probably every device in your home can operate off of your phone.
Yeah.
And your phone can probably do functions like, I think basically the conversation that I have is that what percentage of what your phone is actually capable of do you use?
Yeah.
I think across the board, people will say, oh, I only use it for like 3 things. Your phone has the capacity to do like 1 million times more than what you use it for.
Absolutely.
And then you throw it away after 3 years. Throw it away after 3 years.
Well,
and it can,
well, the average person does, yes. But
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is people, like the vast majority of people, don't need to spend $500 to $1,000 on their phone every 3 years.
No.
But because of how powerful these corporations are, that is what everyone will do. They don't even realize. So yeah, like education is important, but the fact is you are competing against what the corporations are also doing. It's sort of like when you look at the situation with so that sort of dovetails into something else that bothers me in terms of finance, right? When you look at finance, one of the things that bothers me the most about finance is that it's when you look at the way that money is structured, like a lot of these systems are structured, they only hurt people that don't have a lot of money, right? Or don't have a lot of time. So for example, I think one of the basic things that I like talking about is the difference between relative and absolute value for things, right? So for example, if you have, $1,000 in your bank account and your ATM fee is $5, every time you go to the ATM, it hurts. It hurts you, right?
Yeah.
But if you have $1 million in your account, a $5 ATM fee does not matter.
Well, or
right?
better yet, the bank won't charge you the fee because you have the $1 million in the
Or
account.
they may not even, right? Yeah. They might not even charge you at all, right? And so on the one hand, you're thinking, okay, well, maybe lower bank account or lower amount in your account, maybe a higher risk, so maybe you need to charge a little bit more. Maybe there's some sort of weird logic to it. But at the end of the day, like, why does it cost money at all? Like you said, if it doesn't cost money for $1 million in your account, then why should it cost money for $1,000 in your account?
Well, that's a very good point that we should explore in our next call. So how about we do this, Mike? We're gonna wrap it up here, okay?
Okay.
And I'm trying to think of the best way to do this because all right, well, for the time being, just keep your hands where they are, and I'll call you back later, okay? Nice talking to you, Mike. Okay.
Okay.